Fight.
Hi and welcome to the Bug Out podcast. Today we'll be talking about the Dyatlov Pass incident. So an incident in 1959 where 9 people tragically lost their lives due to unknown circumstances. How are you today, Hex?
Not bad.
So we're going to start off by just talking about the expedition itself and the group. A little bit about them leaving and the moments leading up to the horrible incident. And Hex is going to tell you a little bit about that. Oh no, am I going to tell them a little bit about that?
I think you are.
Yeah, I think I am. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. So the group was made up of 9 youngsters, and 9 youngsters and 1 older gentleman who was a little bit of an outsider to the group. They were experienced in hiking, I believe.
Yep.
They'd been on quite a lot of expeditions before. It was something they did as a hobby, for fun. I believe the one older gentleman, from what I was reading on a Russian website I found, he was a tourism instructor. The other 9 were all students or graduates.
Is this the same Russian website that mysteriously disappeared?
No, that was a different one. That first one that disappeared, I don't think that was the Russian website. Was it Russian?
Well, it looked it.
See, we
It
tried
had
to
all the
do a little
autopsy reports.
We tried to do a little bit of research into the lives of the 9 people who lost their lives, because we thought it'd be interesting to kind of cover it from that angle and take a look at them as human beings before we spoke about how they died. But it was really difficult to find sources on the internet that spoke about the people behind the incident rather than the incident itself.
Yeah, I mean, it would talk about like what injuries they had, but nothing about before that.
Yeah, didn't really speak much about them as people, but they were youngsters. They were all in college. There was a fair amount that I found about the older gentleman, Semyon, or Seaman as you call him. Who's pronouncing it wrong here? Is it?
I don't know, but it's spelt semen.
See, the spelling that I found on that Russian website was Semyon. I don't know.
It could have just been conflict of sources or anything, but
You know how to pronounce his surname. What's his surname?
Zolotarev, I think.
Solitarev.
I've probably butchered that because I don't speak Russian, but
Yeah, there was a fair amount about his life previous to kind of setting out on this expedition with this group. He was a little bit of an outsider, but we'll get into that later. For now, we'll just talk about the expedition itself. So, the group arrived by train at a town called Ivdel in the centre of the northern province of Sverdlovsk Oblast. Did that sound right to you? Sverdlov Oblast.
Yeah.
And this was on January 25th, 1959. Following that, they took a lorry or a truck, if there's any American listeners, in case they don't know what a lorry is.
They won't.
to the village of Vizhai. And then they spent the night in Vizhai before setting out. Apparently they just kind of rested up there. They had plenty to eat and they got their energy up.
I mean, if I was going to go walk up a mountain the next day, I would want to sleep.
You know what I'd do in that situation?
Not walk up the mountain?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Especially a mountain called Death Mountain.
What? Is that what it was?
I believe the locals, the kind of the locals to that area, they called it Death Mountain. I believe I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the case.
So I might be wrong, but I'm sure I'm right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that that's the case. Because I believe that the locals actually had quite a lot of s- not suspicion, superstitions about the mountain.
I don't
Um,
know.
I believe they saw it as quite a mysterious kind of place. They found it. A lot of them didn't like going to it. They didn't like spending time around it. But we'll get into more of that later. Might
I
talk
didn't
about the
know that.
Mensk.
I've not read that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I can't remember where I read it. I couldn't give you a source, but I definitely read something about that,
Mm.
about the locals.
Oh well.
Yeah, so on January 27th was when they began their journey, and this is when the only surviving member of the group, Yuri Yudin, decided to turn back.
Mm. I'd be
Um,
glad he did.
yeah, I'll be glad he did. It was kind of lucky and unlucky at the same time. I mean, the reason he left was because he did not keep well. He
Yeah,
was,
medical conditions, I think.
yeah, he suffered from rheumatism and a congenial heart defect.
Mm.
So he was quite sickly and decided it would be best for him to turn back. So after that, we'd that's the point where we kind of lose all actual victim or personal accounts of what happened. From there on forward, we'll just going off diary entries
Mm.
and things like that to try and piece together what happened following Yuri's departure.
Yeah, because um, I think that I read that the before they left, the group leader was it is it Igor?
Yeah,
Would
Dyatlov
send a
himself.
would send a telegram or something to him as soon as they returned back to that little village. Um,
Mm-hmm. Aye,
the
just to let
village of
them know that
Ishai or something, yeah.
yeah. Um,
Which they estimated no later than the 12th of February as well.
yeah, but I believe that obviously we'll get into this later, but I believe that the families and Yuri himself kind of said, that's when they said they'll try and be back, but
Yeah.
when it comes to this kind of thing, there's a lot of things that could have slowed them down.
Yeah.
So there was always going to be a bit of time to make allowances for that.
Yeah.
So as far as we know, following that, on January 31st, the group arrived at the edge of the highland area and prepared to begin climbing. Um, there was a wooded valley area here, and they stored away some food and supplies and equipment for kind of safekeeping for the trip back.
Hmm.
The next day, they started to move through the pass, and they initially intended to make it over the pass and make camp for the next night on the opposite side. But due to severe weather conditions, I believe there was some snowstorms that night. They actually deviated west towards the peak of the mountain.
Hmm.
Um, when they realised their mistake, they
What mountain
decided
is
to.
it? Can you say the name? What mountain is it?
I'm not going to say the name.
Say it.
Let's just say Death Mountain.
Death Mountain.
Yeah.
The Colat Mountain.
Cola Seacle.
Sequel.
I have no idea, but yeah. Once they realised their mistake, they decided to make camp on a slope, and it wasn't a very steep slope. It seemed very safe in
I
that
think
area,
that I
but
read it was 23 degrees or something, the slope.
yeah,
I think.
yeah, it wasn't a bad slope at all. But again, we'll get into that later. But just downhill, about a kilometre and a half away, there was a forested area where they would have had better shelter. But it's assumed that Dyatlov wouldn't have wanted them to lose altitude. So, that's a lot of energy
What do you mean
drained
it's
by,
assumed? By who?
well, because we don't know why they wouldn't have went down there where it's safer. But a good assumption is that the group leader Dyatlov wouldn't have wanted to lose altitude because that's a lot of energy. When you're in that kind of situation, heading 1.5 kilometers downhill to climb back up it the next day.
I'd rather do that than try and camp on a slope.
True, but like I say, it's not. It wasn't an extreme slope. It wasn't an obvious avalanche area. There was no. It wasn't really a dangerous area that they camped in the end. It just turns out that the wooded area would have gave them more shelter, but then they're gonna pay for that shelter by exerting themselves more the next morning. And that pretty much is all we've got. That's the entire journey and all the major things leading up to the incident itself.
Yeah.
If we want to move on to the actual the discovery of them and the search for them that followed that, you could maybe walk us through that.
So, after the 12th of February had passed, there was still no telegram from Igor.
Right.
Nothing from the group. Like you said, though, that's probably just because conditions, delays, etc. 8 days later, though, that's when the group's relatives demanded a search and rescue for them because they still weren't back.
Yeah.
I mean, bear in mind that most of them were already experienced campers, so...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the search and rescue at first was only other students, or was there more?
Student volunteers and teachers.
Yeah, that was it.
After that, then the army and the Soviet police joined in with planes and stuff. Choppers.
Right. And did they find them?
On the 26th of February, they found the abandoned camp.
Right.
Which belonged to the group. Which is obviously when they noticed the tent that was cut from the inside and snow. Was snow on top of it? I think I read that, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was kind of like there was snow on top of it, but it wasn't. It wasn't like a devastating amount of snow. It was just kind of natural snowfall.
Yeah, but that was like 13 feet of snow.
Was it that much?
Yeah, 4 meters, 13 feet.
I don't think it was that much.
It was. They were some of the bodies were found under 4 meters of snow, which is 13 feet. That's a lot of snow.
I'm not sure where I read, but I don't know. Continue. I'm sure I read that it wasn't actually a lot of snow that was on top of them.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but I read that it was 4 meters, which is 13 feet.
Right.
Anyway, all the stuff was what?
How did they find them under that amount of snow? Like
that's what I thought. Cause you see
that the tent or them?
The tent.
Right.
The camp. But see when you look.
Because I saw photos.
Yeah, if you look at the pictures of it, you can see the tent sticking out.
Yeah, the photos don't look like 13 feet.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean,
seems like a crazy amount.
Yeah, but the tent obviously had all their belongings still in it. Most of the shoes still had all their clothes and stuff as well. Which is what?
There was a lot of 9 sets of footprints leading out away from the tent.
9 sets of footprints. But they were like bare footprints, and
some were only socks, and some were some were like one shoe on and
one sock on and stuff.
Yeah, it was all kinds of a mess. But I believe that Dyatlov himself, I think it was Dyatlov, had an obsession with everyone having to take off their shoes and clean their feet as they came into the tent. That was a thing that he was kind of... I don't know if it was like he had like OCD or something.
Don't know.
But
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he always insisted that as people came into the tent from being outside, they'd have to remove their shoes and clean their feet.
Mm-hmm.
So that could explain it, but also experienced hikers running out of a tent and what must have been pretty freezing temperatures during snowstorm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the people searching, that's when they found the tent obviously cut from the inside as well.
Yeah.
Which, why they didn't just go out the front of it,
Sorry,
plays
just
into,
adjusting my chair here.
plays into the theories and stuff, but...
Yes, yeah. We're not really going to go too much into the explanations in the first part of this, but that was a problem that I always had with the avalanche explanation, is that if an avalanche hit them and they were forced to leave the tent, obviously they might have been in a rush to leave the tent in the first place, but
Mm-hmm.
they're not just going to run out into the wilderness. They probably would have tried to at least get their belongings, and
they didn't run.
These were experienced people. They would have tried to kind of collect their stuff together, and you'd think that they'd have a good way of kind of they'd have a plan for survival in that kind of situation. That's what you'd expect anyway. But
but apparently the sets of footprints, they weren't like all scattered and stuff as if they ran in a panic. It was just as if they just walked away from the tents. So
it's just another one of the strange things that surrounds the case. It's
yeah.
weird. So many weird things.
I mean, it's weird because if it's also saying that there was 4 meters of snow or something, or fresh snowfall on top of them, how are they gonna? Unless this was the 2 months after when they found the bodies in the river, but I don't see how they're going to manage to follow footprints under 4 meters of snow.
Yeah, it's strange. So, we'll move on now to kind of where they found the bodies and how they found the bodies. Obviously,
what states they were in, yeah.
Yeah, 2 of them were found in that wooded area that I mentioned earlier on, about 1.5 kilometers down the hill.
Yeah, where they stored the food and stuff.
Yeah, they found not far from a tree a small campfire.
Yeah, so something happened at the camp, in the tent. They cut it from the inside out. They didn't put on any, I think, 1 or 2 people maybe had clothes on.
Yeah, they were all in varying degrees of undress. It was strange.
So they got out, and then they walked apparently calmly to the tree line where it was 1.5 kilometers away. And then built up a fire in the woods to stay warm. It just doesn't add up to anything.
It looked like someone had been climbing one of the trees as well. Because there was branches broken towards the top of one of the trees near where they were camping.
Yeah, it was like 5 meters up. The branches were broken.
Yeah, so it seems like maybe they'd been somebody had been climbing the tree, maybe to have a look around or something like that, or to escape something. It's hard to know.
I mean, if I'm climbing a tree, I'm gonna be looking for something or trying to hide from someone.
Yeah.
But
well,
I saw that pine tree. Do they have like a lot of big branches coming off them, or is it just a straight up tree?
Typically they've got a lot of branches, yeah, but they're not kind of thicker branches like you'd get on something like an oak tree.
So
but they're still, depending on the size of the pine tree, they can still be fairly sturdy to climb. But
I just don't. They couldn't have been running from anything if they made a campfire and they walked calmly away.
I'd saw some reports or some people claiming that there might have been some infighting between a couple of the guys. But this is something that again the reports are conflicting. Some reports say that they were an amazing group of friends who got on really well and never had any kind of fights or fallouts. and then there was some reports that said, that there was some kind of love triangles and jealousy and things like that amongst them,
I
and
don't.
the possibility of a fight between a couple of them breaking out was
Yeah,
mentioned, but
regardless of that, they're not going to be stupid and go outside in a storm, in a snowstorm,
no,
with just their underwear and just their socks or no socks or whatever on.
especially when it's the kind of thing you'd expect young people to do, make silly mistakes like that if maybe they were drinking, but
Yeah.
they weren't. There was no alcohol with them, so they hadn't been drinking or anything. They had, I believe, they had one small flask, but it hadn't been drank out of.
Anyway, so
So
the tree was where the first two bodies were found. Yeah,
yeah,
next to the campfire or near the campfire. Anyway,
and they were the bodies of
Yuri and Yuri.
the two Yuris.
Technically Yuri, and I think the other one was called George or something.
Yeah,
but
Georgie.
they get apparently called Yuri. Just
that
a name for
that
it.
was. I think that was Yuri Doroshenko that they called Georgie. Or was it?
No, the
I may
other
be
one.
wrong. Krivonyshenko.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, because
So it was Krivonyshenko and Doroshenko
I think I could be
that were found.
yeah I could be wrong, but I think he was like best pals with Igor.
I'm not sure.
Because I think I read that he went on like nearly every trip with him.
Right.
I don't know if that's true, but again, just interesting, yeah. Because
So
you can hardly find these details. See if you Google it. That came from that other website that randomly, mysteriously disappeared a couple of days after it was up.
well, I've been told that the book Dead Mountain, that was written by Dominic Icar, or Donnie Icar. The book by him apparently delves quite deep into the lives of them and stuff, but I really haven't had time to read it myself. But apparently that's it. For anyone who's listening to this and wondering where they can learn even more about the situation, I hear that book is a good place to start.
Mm-hmm. But you would think that there would be at least some website honouring the victims or something, I think
the problem is, the problem with the modern internet is that everything's got to be clickbait. It's always if you go on to Google and you search for the incident, no matter what you type in, you're going to be getting results for,
they've
pages
solved it. Have they solved it?
Yeah, have they solved it? What happened? What's the explanations? Was it a Yeti? This, that. No one's really interested in the people behind it because we're so far removed from it,
Anyway, back to it.
Yeah, back to it.
So that was the first two victims. Their bodies were found. Because I had wrote about the 5 meter branch, or the 5 meter up in the tree. The branches were broken.
Yeah.
Then there was 3 more bodies found in between the forest and the camp, which was Igor Dyatlov. Is it Zeneda?
I'm not even going to attempt that one.
Kolmogorova.
Let me see. Let me get it up.
Zeneda.
Kolmogorova.
And then
Zeneda. I'd say Zeneda.
And then was it Rustam Slobodin or something? However it's pronounced.
Yeah, Slobodin.
What?
Slobodin.
Right.
I don't know. We apologise if anyone from Russia.
We apologise.
We apologise.
They died in positions or poses that looked like they were trying to maybe crawl or walk or crawl back to camp or something like that.
Again, very strange.
Yeah, because they calmly walk out and go 1.5 kilometres away and then just decide to walk back.
Mm-hmm.
Why? It doesn't...
Seems like... See, if I was... Right, I'm just going to say right now, right? let's say it was Minsk, right? Let's say it was the Russian Death Mountain Yeti, right? Comes in, fucks their shit up in the camp, right? They're like, we need to get out of here. They calmly walk away.
They calmly walk away.
Yeah, see, that throws a bit of a spanner in my little head cannon I had going here.
Yeah, and it couldn't have been.
Camp.
It couldn't have been anything dangerous because they calmly walked away.
Climb a tree.
And climbed a tree to probably look back at the camp to then walk all the way back and then died halfway there because of the snowstorm.
There was also reports of someone peeing outside of the tent before they left.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, there was mentions of that. There was like traces of urine outside the tent, but I don't know how they're meant to prove. I don't understand forensics or nothing, but I don't know how they could prove that pee was right before the incident, opposed to maybe when they first got there or something.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently somebody had peed outside the tent.
Yeah, and just in case you're interested, it says that the bodies were found 980 feet, 1,570 feet, and 2,070 feet away from that pine tree where the fire was. That's a long way.
Yeah, it's a fairly long way. Especially if... I don't know if there was still a snowstorm ongoing at the time. Because obviously that's why they had to set up camp where they did, because of the snowstorm.
Yeah, they walked out during the snowstorm in no clothes. I think there was only one or two people that had clothes on, but they had been stripped so other people could have them.
Yeah.
Which means they knew what they were doing to set up a fire. They knew that they had to get clothes off of already dead members.
That's the thing as well, that one of the explanations for some of the deaths was, and some of the undress was obviously paradoxical undressing, which is, when you've got hypothermia, your body starts to feel warm, so people take their clothes off.
Yeah, but I don't know how long that lasts for. But
they left with their clothes off. It's not like they were out in the snow.
Yeah.
And then took their clothes off because they were getting hypothermia. They already had their clothes off, some of them anyway, when they left, which is strange, so strange. And then I believe the last few bodies weren't found until 2 months later.
Yeah.
They
2 months, the last 4 bodies. So that would have been what? When were they found? Did I say, was it May?
And I'd just like to drop a disclaimer before we talk about these last bodies. We will be talking about some kind of graphic injuries here. So if you're at all squeamish, or if you've got, if you're kind of squeamish with that stuff, you can skip past this little section. But we'll try and kind of remain a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Respectful with it. We'll not go into too much gruesome detail, but we're going to mention what we need to about the bodies here.
Mm-hmm.
So these bodies were found in a ravine.
Yep, and they were better dressed. They were the ones that took the clothes off the other dead members.
Yeah, and I believe just as I was mentioning with the slope, the ravine wasn't what you'd think of. It wasn't some kind of really deep, steep ravine. It was more It was kind of like a more natural slope.
Yeah, I've not seen the pictures of the ravine or anything. So
I've seen pictures of it. It looks like the kind of ravine that if you fell into, you'd maybe snap your ankle if you went down a bit weird. But it doesn't look like the kind of ravine that you could die from falling into instantly, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Anyway, when you were mentioning like falling and breaking your ankle, apparently they had fell down a snow hole.
Right.
If you've heard of that, that's obviously like one of the theories anyway. But I don't even know what a snow hole is. I'm assuming it's just a kind of basically empty pocket in the snow that you fall into.
Yeah. I'm not sure. See, the injuries is the weirdest thing about it. Some of it, I think, has been blown out of proportion by other people who have covered this case, but then some of it is strange. Like, some of them had internal injuries that matched those of high-speed car victims, like car crash victims, which is crazy. Like, was there broken ribs?
Yeah.
And
Aye. Yeah.
but the external injuries weren't. Externally they didn't really look injured, but internally they were really badly messed up.
I mean, I can easily go through and say what every single member had. That website that we were on that magically disappeared had apparent autopsy reports,
Right.
like screenshots and stuff. I don't know if that's real. I don't know why the website's now disappeared.
See, when I was looking into this,
that was saying different things than what, let's say, Wikipedia was saying about the injuries.
Yeah. See,
like for the guy that was in the army.
Yeah.
The older guy, there was next to nothing about him on Wiki Renton.
Right.
It was only the autopsy report that I could get his injuries from.
See, there was a lot of strangeness surrounding seamen in general. He was really the standout member of the group in the way that...
I mean, we'll finish...
We'll
finish talking about the other three that got found 2 months later anyway, and then we'll go back and talk about them.
Yeah, we seamen, we'll cover that in the explanations in part 2.
Yeah.
We're going to cover more in-depth theories about him and things like that, but for right now we will try and stick to the injuries and the way that the investigators found them and the investigation into it.
Yeah, because the 3 students that was found... No, was it 3? Was it the other 3 students, was it? The other 4?
4.
The other 4. 3 of the 4 were wearing clothes, it said on it.
Yeah.
Ludmilla?
Yeah.
I don't know how you say her name.
Davina?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was wearing some of Yuri's burnt and torn trousers.
Yeah, yeah.
And her left foot was wrapped up in a torn jacket as well, so she obviously was of sound enough mind to try and cover herself up from the snow and stuff.
And she had the most graphic injuries. She was the one who had, and again, gore warning here, her tongue had been removed.
Yeah, removed. I don't know if it was. I don't know if it's been proven to be removed. It could have been eaten. Yeah,
well, the thing is that they were in a body, like, their faces, their heads were kind of leaned into a body of water.
So but that's not the weird bit about it.
Yeah.
Because apparently that's not where she died.
Well, yeah. And apparently there was also blood found in her stomach, congealed blood. And the thing... I learned this from this case, and I might be wrong, but from what I've read, apparently if your tongue's removed after death, whether it was eaten or by animals or whatever, the blood that comes from that won't be swallowed, because obviously you're dead. You don't swallow when you're dead. But there was congealed blood found in her stomach in the autopsy, which would presume she was still alive when that injury happened. But again, there's a good chance that it was just like kind of some kind of animal life or something like that.
Well, I mean, she was found face down in a ravine. I don't know what fish or animals live around a ravine. But
See, what I read was it
the
could have
most,
been microbial, because
cause I mean,
obviously it's months removed.
yeah.
It could have been microbial, just bacteria in the water and stuff breaking down the tissue, the soft tissues. Because also our eyes, was it both our eyes were gone?
No, I think it was just one of her eyes.
And
Um,
eyebrows as well?
or it might have been two eyes and one eyebrow.
Or was it a lips as well? Was our lips gone?
No, I don't think so.
Basically, this girl had most of her face gone. Like, she'd been munched, or something not nice had happened to her anyway, either post death or pre death. It's really hard to kind of find people who agree on when these injuries would have happened. But
Well, the autopsy said that her cause of death was due to extensive hemorrhage,
yeah,
he, in the right ventricle of the heart.
right,
And just in case you didn't know, that's for pumping the blood from your
yeah,
heart to your lungs
yeah.
and
So
stuff.
a hemorrhage is, yeah. So what kind?
Multiple bilateral fracture of the ribs,
Yeah.
generally associated with direct trauma.
Which one of them? One of them had a fractured skull as well. But from what I read, it was a fracture that wouldn't have been a mortal wound. That was semen, because I remember reading that semen. The only thing that they found with him was a fracture in the skull, but it wasn't a fracture that would have killed him. I'm pretty sure it was.
I can't
Semen.
remember. I know his ribs were broken.
Right, maybe it's not. Maybe it's
Um,
the other guy, one of the other guys then that I'm thinking
the
about.
autopsy also said that there was like an open wound as well
Right,
on the side where his ribs were broken, but nowhere else says that. So I don't know how much I can trust of it.
right,
He also had one eye missing,
uh huh,
and it was his eyebrow.
right. So I feel like this is important as well to kind of point out is, um, this was 1959 Russia, which was just slightly post USSR nation, and information on things like this, it's it's not
Super
like,
hard to get.
yeah, it's not like today. If someone died today, it's quite easy to find an autopsy report, a cause of death, several different reports and investigations that are easy to find on what happened.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't quite the same in Russia in 1959. I mean, it's probably the same in Russia today. They've always been kind of, they're not the most open of societies when it comes to information, especially back then. Um, so that's why a lot of the information on them is quite patchy. And then I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but was there not a private investigation launched and the findings were marked as secret?
Not
Because,
No, I mean, well, what I've got is in May of 1959, the official conclusion was that they had died of compelling natural forces.
right,
Um, the investigation ended as a result of the absence of a guilty party, and then the files were sent to a secret archive. But I've not read anything about like secret investigators or whatever.
yeah, see, I'd read somewhere that, and again, I apologise because my sources are all over the place and different sources say different things. But I'd read somewhere that there was an investigation launched, and then the findings of the investigation were marked as top secret. But again, one of the other things that I read was that nuclear material was found on 2 of the bodies. But then,
Yeah.
but then I read somewhere that one of them worked in a nuclear plant.
Mm-hmm.
But then, on
I
the
think it might have been one of the Yuris.
then on the Russian site that I found that kind of talked about their lives a little bit. It doesn't say under occupation for all of them. It was saying, postgraduate, pre-graduates. It didn't say. I know that some of them were students of science and things, science and engineering,
Mm-hmm.
but it never specifically said that any of them worked on a power plant. But at the same time, I don't know if that's something that might have been, obviously, again, USSR Russia,
Overlooked.
post USSR Russia. It might have been something that was maybe a bit confidential.
Don't know.
But yeah, I see a lot of people using the nuclear material as this big kind of conspiracy angle, and personally I don't think it holds much weight if that's true that one of them did work in a nuclear power plant. But again,
Yeah.
that's explanations which we'll be getting a bit more into in part 2.
Yeah, but apart from the fractures to the ribs, I don't think there was much else. Obviously, her tongue was removed or eaten out or cut off or bitten off or whatever it was. But that's really the only, I say really only, the injuries that she had when she was found after the 2 months, which was approximately, it says, 245 foot away from the fire in the
Right,
opposite direction from the camp.
right. They,
But it also says that she was found, well, not found, that apparently she had died on her back because there was a lot of blood, which means she was then moved after death to the ravine and put face down
by the Mensk.
by
It's
the big Yeti.
it's such a strange case with so many different possibilities of what actually happened, and that's exactly why we've decided to split this episode into 2 parts, because right now we're running on a good kind of half hour to an hour, 40 minutes, something like that. So in part 2 we'll be discussing a little bit more about the possibilities of what happened that day. I don't think that we're going to actually come to a conclusion with what happened.
No.
A lot of smarter people than us have tried, but I think it's still interesting and worthwhile to kind of take a look at the different theories, ranging from the absurd to the possibly most likely, and we'll see kind of where we land at the end of that. But
Have we missed anyone? We've done the 2 Uris at the camp, and then we've done the extra 3 bodies that was trying to make it back to the tent.
yep,
And then the last 4 at the ravine, which we've talked about, one of them.
yeah, but the ravine bodies are pretty much, I don't want to say they're all the same because they're different people who died, and it's very sad and tragic, but they all had kind of similar mysterious internal injuries that, looked like they'd been through a car crash. Pretty much, like, that's what I found a little bit frustrating when I was looking into the ones found in the ravine. It kind of, every kind of source that I look at kind of lumps them in as one, in the way that, apart from obviously Dubnina's horrific injuries to the face.
Well, I mean, they all kind of had horrific injuries,
Well, yeah,
if you
yeah.
think about it.
I think she was the worst though. But obviously,
Well,
outside of that, they're kind of lumped together in the cause of death category, being, it looked like they'd been in a car crash and there was some weirdness about how they'd been moved and things like that. I don't know if there's any other
true.
kind of things you'd seen about it.
Well, I mean, the Zolotarev guy,
Yeah.
It was his eyebrow was missing, one of his eyes.
Yeah.
Ribs 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 were all broken with an open wound exposing bone, so he didn't get it pretty good either.
No. I mean, none of them.
Um,
None of them got it good. They're all.
Nikolai
Yeah.
was one of the members that was found in the ravine as well. Cause of death was ruled as compound fracture.
Right.
Of the skull bone and a copious amount of bleeding.
That might have been the one that I was thinking. No, because the one I was reading said that they had a fracture in the skull, but it wasn't. Apparently, it wasn't that bad, and I don't know if that's the one. Because was some of the bodies looked at by different. I don't know what you call a doctor who does autopsies. But I don't know if some of them. There was also stuff about their bodies.
No, that was Rustam.
Right.
The athletic one, the one that died on the way back or trying to get back to the camp.
Right, he was the one with the fracture.
Yeah, because I read that it was the cause of death was ruled hypothermia, like everyone else's did.
Yeah, but it had a strange.
But on the autopsy report that on that website.
Yeah.
Says that it was his cranial vault had been damaged.
Right. So
which, when I googled, it says that's the cranial space that encases and protects the brain together with the base of the skull.
Right. So there you go. That's another weird thing. Like, the guys who fell into the ravine, it'd be quite easy to say, those injuries were sustained from falling into the ravine. But then this guy, how did he get a fractured skull? It's so strange.
Well, a lot of them that had head injuries, I think, on the autopsy reports, it stated that it was convulsions or something before they froze or before they died, which could have obviously either happened when they fell over or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's what the kind of the autopsy stuff's going off of. But then you find other bits that say something completely different. So, but that's the one that that's the one that you're thinking of anyway.
Yeah, that must be the one I was thinking of.
Because I think it might be on Wiki or a different website, it says that the damage was mostly on the right side, which has made people believe or hypothesize that he was attacked by someone who was like a left-handed person. Yeah. I don't know what other evidence you can gather from that, apart from just throwing that theory out there.
See, that whole attack thing, I don't know if that's what I was reading about when the theory came up that maybe a couple of them had a falling out.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's such an insane case. It's so strange. Like, it's one of those things where you think that you've found an answer, but then it doesn't explain everything. And like I was saying before, this is what next episode's going to be all about. Part 2 is when you try to explain this, it brings up problems that you didn't see coming. Like, we could right now I could say, oh well, it was obviously an avalanche.
There's extensive research to say that it isn't, though.
Yeah, but
that's the thing.
There's other things that suggest it is, but that's what I'm saying. I can be like, I was obviously an avalanche, but these were smart kids and experienced expeditioners. So
and professionals that are looking into this.
Yeah,
don't forget that.
Let's just say that it was an avalanche for a second, right? Let's just say, right, so the snow falls onto their tent, buries them. They manage to dig their way out. They cut a hole in the tent and dig their way out. And then they just wander off casually and don't bother going back for any clothes or anything that they might need to survive. It makes no sense. And then it's similar with, just about any explanation you bring up for this, you get one thing or a couple of things that just give you a massive roadblock. Like, I think that's what the fascination is about the case itself, is just the amount of things that kind of just don't quite line up. And
you think you're going to get somewhere, and then
yeah,
the next thing you look at, it's like, well, it doesn't fit in anywhere.
yeah, exactly. You can follow. You'll see a lot of pages if you research this yourself that explain it, but then you see that they just leave things out in their explanation. You know, like you do see the avalanche theory a lot, and then they just don't bother to mention the things that just don't quite fall into that theory. Like the
I feel
fact,
like I could add on more to this, but obviously we're gonna go through the theories and stuff next episode. So
yeah, exactly. Well,
I'm kind of like trying to think of what I could say without having to repeat it again.
yeah, yeah, exactly. We don't want to go too deep into it, because I believe that the explanations themselves, we're gonna go over all of them, that we've seen, and there's varying degrees of believability with them. Some are a bit fun. Well, I don't want to say fun because people died, but you know, some of them are a bit more
Yeti like.
yeah, like UFOs, aliens, that kind of thing. And then some of them are a bit more grounded in reality. I don't want to say grounded in reality because, you know, I'm a believer in UFOs, but
well, I suppose.
um, but we will get into that in part 2. Have you got anything else you want to say, Hex? Or
Nah,
no?
not about that. I think we've went over everything.
I think we have. So I'll just say, look forward to part 2. We're going to talk about the explanations and things. We've already explained that, and go into a bit more detail with the explanations and possibilities that what could have happened, and maybe some other stuff following the event. So that'll be released. When are we releasing it? On Friday.
Yeah.
So this will be going
Friday.
up on Monday night. We may be back with a shorter episode for you on Wednesday, and then on Friday will be part 2 of the Dyatlov Pass incident. So thank you for listening to the Bug Out podcast. I've been your host, Lishi, and this is my co-host, Hex. You want to say bye?
Bye.
And thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next time.